After that loss, I feel the need to remind many of us, including myself, to not overreact and just to stay on target. One might say to RELAX. Our Packers are still in the playoffs, and we can get warmed up by starting off the new year and hosting the Bears. Lots to talk about here on your Packers Fan Podcast.
I'm Scott Clark, and you might know me from the Gaming Outsider podcast. And despite the loss, I'm very happy to be here talking to Wayne once again about the Green Bay Packers and looking forward to next week. Wayne, it is good to see you, and Happy New Year, sir.
Happy New Year indeed. Here's to 2025 and many good things, not even just the things that are football related. Wayne Henderson here. I'm still shaking my head about so many things from that game. So on this 315th edition of your Packers Fan Podcast, we'll recap that Vikings-Packers game. Scott says we have to talk about it, so okay. Then we've got listener feedback, some very insightful thoughts to share. Thanks for sending them in for us.
Also, we'll preview next Sunday's game against the Bears at Lambeau. It is going to be the last regular season game of the year, and that will include our keys to a Packers victory. And let's go ahead and jump right into the stats. Starting off with the Packers leaders in the Vikings-Packers game. Obviously passing, Jordan Love, 19 for 30 yards for 185 yards, 1 touchdown, and again, 0 interceptions. What is that, 6 weeks in a row?
Yes, I
without
believe
an interception?
So.
His passer rating was 91.7. Rushing, Josh Jacobs carried the ball 17 times for 69 yards and did have a touchdown. Romeo Doubs was the top receiver with 7 catches for 58 yards. And on defense, Edgerrin Cooper, this rookie, man, I tell you, 11 tackles, 8 of them solo, and 4 tackles for a loss. Now, a little inside football here. I get these stats from ESPN's website, and they actually gave Javon Bullard the top spot because he had 1 more solo tackle than Cooper. But I'm giving Cooper the credit because because Bullard had 0 tackles for a loss. You know, I don't know why they do that, but man, what a pickup he was. He is just, I feel like every time there's a tackle, I see him. I don't notice defensive players nearly as much as offensive players, but he is all over the place, and I love to see it.
And I got to tell you, there are a lot of our defensive players I would like to see a little more often. I don't know if they're just doing things behind the scenes, but I mean, you know, a lot of people, they're doing the work. I'm sure they're doing the work. They're just not standing out. But Edgerrin Cooper, wow, you're right. This guy is somebody to keep our eyes on going forward because he's got magic.
Absolutely. Let's talk about the opening drive. We started with a ball this time. Converted a 3rd down conversion, and things were looking up, and then Jacobs fumbled, and Minnesota recovered at their own 38. So things were not starting out great. It was already a bad sign there.
Exactly. It gave me a weird feeling right off the bat. On the opening defensive drive, you know, thankfully the Packers held the Vikings to a 3-and-out, okay, forcing a punt, and the Packers had to start again on their own 15-yard line. So not the best field position, but it could have been worse.
Packers did wind up drawing first blood towards the end of the first quarter thanks to a missed field goal by Minnesota. Green Bay had good starting field position. Although they weren't able to punch it into the end zone, Narveson booted one through the uprights for the first score of the game, giving the Packers the early lead 3-0. Now, I got to ask you, Wayne, because this one was kind of controversial. You know, they had 4th down and 2 or something like that, and they chose not to go for it. They chose to take the early points. How did you feel about that call? Did you want them to go for it?
Well, first I had a quick question for you. When did Narveson rejoin the team? I'd missed him out there. I was still looking for Brandon McManus.
McManus. Oh, I totally Ron Burgundy that. Where did I get Narveson from?
You're living in the past.
That's what I get for taking notes while I'm doing the game. So that is my apologies, guys. Narveson is no longer a Green Bay Packer. Yes, that was McManus. McManus put one through the uprights to give the Packers a first score of the game. Okay, back to the topic at hand.
In a lot of ways, I'm like, it's 4th and 2. Go for it. I know you need the points on the road, but you know, a little later on, I think we had 4th and 5, and we went for it when we should have went for the field goal. So I'm torn because I sound like I'm being a hypocrite, but I think we should have gone for it. How about you?
In the moment, I was feeling like we should have gone for it. It was like, you know, hey, it's working for the Lions. I know we're not the Lions, but you know, this is the time to be aggressive. But after they kicked it, I was like, you know what? I think the way that LaFleur was looking at it was they needed that first score. They needed that momentum thing to get them going to have any kind of lead against Minnesota at this point. So I chalked it up for that. But yeah, in the moment, I definitely wanted them to go for it.
And then Valentine helped keep us in the game with a huge interception. There was 7:03 left in the third quarter. Valentine picked it off, ran it all the way to the Minnesota 16. So that brought a lot of energy. It was almost a disaster, however. He fumbled it when he went down. And thankfully, Brooks was there. He was alert and recovered it. So things were going in our favor a bit. And after a first down conversion to give the Packers a 1st and goal, Jacobs ran it in for 6. The Vikings lead 20-10 at this point, and I'm like, are we ever going to catch up? We found out later.
Yeah, well, the Pack refused to give up. I don't know what happened between the third and fourth quarter to light a fire under their butts, but they closed the gap slightly with just 6:12 left to go in the game. This felt like the first truly fundamental drive by the Packers all game. Josh Jacobs had an incredible run that was negated by a holding penalty. And seriously, did you see that stiff arm and second effort he gave on that play?
Incredible.
It was so awesome to see, and then to have it called back by a penalty was just devastating. But Wilson wound up putting it in the end zone. Green Bay, interestingly, went for 2 and converted successfully, so the Vikings were still ahead 27-18. But that was really interesting to go for 2 at that point. I guess, instead of going for it later, get it over with now kind of thing. Maybe. And it gave them the momentum they needed, so...
Or it could just been a case of, at this point, let's get any and all points that are out there. Kick field goals, 2-point conversions. Let's get a safety. That would have been nice. But anyway, Green Bay does bring it within 2 points at the end of the fourth. The Packers refused to go down without a fight, so that's good to see. We kept moving the chains over and over, got some help with some penalties, a 3-yard pass to Heath for a touchdown, and thanks to that 2-point conversion from before, the Vikings were only leading 27-25.
Unfortunately, that's where the good news ends.
Yes.
We definitely had some lowlights in this game. Packers secondary allowed the Vikings to retake the lead in the first half of the second quarter. Wide receiver Naylor was wide open in the end zone to give them the touchdown. The Green Bay defensive line all game up to this point just could not get to Darnold. It was very frustrating to see how much time he had back there. Meanwhile, Love had no time. It was just really awful. He had so much time. So this was early on in the game. The Vikings took their first lead at 7-3 at this point.
And another kind of down point, we had that failed 4th and 2 towards the end of the first half. Could have closed that gap with a McManus field goal, but we decided to go for it. It appeared they might just try to draw the defense off sides, but they wound up snapping it with a second left. And that's what I thought was happening when they were actually lined up. Oh, we're just going to go out there and pose, try to get them to jump. I don't think people jump for those anymore. Anyway, the pass to Jaden Reed was incomplete, and Minnesota took over on their own 25. And it was like a bang your head into your knuckles. Like, what the
That one
heck
is particularly frustrating because we lost the game by 2.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because that would have forced, that would have given Minnesota the ball again, but a little bit further back, maybe, or maybe not. But, who knows what would have happened. But, man, losing the game by 2 points is just ridiculous. The last series of the half was very frustrating. On the plus side, Brooks sacked Darnold for a huge loss, pushing the Vikings out of field goal range with less than 20 seconds to go. Minnesota converted and put themselves just inside range. Green Bay iced the rookie kicker, and he missed a 55-yarder. But wait, Edgerrin Cooper is penalized for being offsides, giving the Vikings another try, this time from the 50. And despite another Green Bay timeout, Reichard put this one through to extend the lead. Vikings led 13-3 at this point. And I have looked at that overhead shot, and I do not understand the offsides on that one at all.
That was an absolute screw up. If anybody was offsides, it was the Viking player on his side. It's frustrating. I think you would even call it maddening, is a phrase you've used in the past. And that would sum it up. The Vikings were just allowed to march down the field for the opening drive of the second half to score. I don't know if the Packers were still in the locker room mentally, but it was frustrating as well. Those halftime adjustments, they weren't very hopeful or helpful this week. Not much was going on. This one ended with an 18-yard pass into the end zone to Addison. The Vikings were leading 20-3, and I was like, in the past we've talked about how we come out of the second for the second half. I'm not nervous, even if we're down by like 7 or 10.
Exactly.
But after that play, I'm like, uh-oh.
Yeah. And just when I thought we were getting back into it, the Packers let the Vikings march all the way down the field and put another one in the end zone. They simply can't get to Darnold. He has too much time back there, as I said earlier. This time the ball was passed to Akers, who ran the rest of the way in for a 9-yard touchdown, extending the lead 27-10 at this point.
And of course, it did come down to a 3rd and 2 for the game. The Vikings, unfortunately, converted on a short pass to essentially end the game. Green Bay didn't have any timeouts left. The Vikings just took a knee, finished off the game, and they won 27-25. The woulda, coulda, shouldas were everywhere. But like you said, when they're rushing and blitzing Love on almost every play and we can't get to Darnold for some reason, that's probably the main factor.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we get a third try.
Exactly.
That will be the game. Holy cow. I mean, just looking forward to football this weekend. There's a lot of interesting matchups. I mean, obviously we're going to have eyes on the Dallas Commanders game.
We have to root for the Cowboys.
I know it's going to be really weird to do that, but also that the Vikings Lions game, whoever wins is going to take the number 1 seed, and whoever loses gets the number 5 seed, which is just kind of insane to me. The NFC is just nuts. Very powerful NFC. I will be surprised if the winner of the Super Bowl is not from the NFC this year.
That would be a bit surprising indeed. And, we're 11-5. We had 5 losses, and they were 2 to the Lions, 2 to the Vikings, and 1 to the Eagles when Jordan Love got injured. And there's a good chance that the path to the Super Bowl will be us facing all 3 of those teams again. We'll see.
Could you imagine?
But we cannot let the Vikings get the number 1 seed. That would be bad for America.
Yeah, go Lions.
Football lovers everywhere.
I don't hate the Lions. I am not a fan of Minnesota at all. I've had too much stuff happen over the years. But the Lions are due. So if anybody's going to get it, I think they should.
It's in Detroit, right?
I don't know. I would have to look it up.
I think it is. But anyway, back to our 13-time NFL champion Green Bay Packers. Our weekly poll question that we post shortly after the game in the Facebook group at PackersCommunity.com, as well as on X, a.k.a. Twitter. You can find us at Packers Fan Pod. We post it right after the game. And Dan Dyler actually sent one in like as soon as the clock hit 0. And I'm like, that's better than I was trying to come up with anyway. So this one from Dan Dyler, it opened up a little bit of a can of worms. Here's the question. What would you grade the Packers coaching performance in this game, an A through F, and why? So, of course, the options were A, B, C, D, and F. Where do you land, Scott?
I'm going to say C. I don't think it was as bad as they're getting labeled for, but there were some questionable calls, mostly with the play calling. We are a running team, and they're just trying to do these passes. I don't know what we got to do to convince this coaching staff that we are no longer a passing team. I get we paid a lot of money for Jordan Love, and he's a solid quarterback, but we are a running team now. Even outside of Jacobs, Wilson's doing pretty good work back there. So that needs to be the name of the game, and it feels weird to say that after being a fan of the Packers for 40 years at this point. We've always been a passing team, but now we are a running team, and someone needs to tell the coaching staff that. So, yeah, I'm going to say C. How about you?
That is fair enough because, there's people saying we need to fire LaFleur. He's not the answer. Get rid of Jordan Love. He's definitely not the answer. I'm like, what? RELAX.
We're in the playoff, guys.
I've heard that, and that is awesome news. I'm going to go with a B minus. B as in boy minus. I think, especially on the defensive side, I would not be surprised. I think Hafley's calling a good game. I don't know if it's a case of we don't have the right players to fully implement it, or people are just screwing up because we're such a young team and we're not able to follow what's being called. Because he's definitely calling a different game than our previous defensive coordinators, even though we're getting similar results. So overall, between offense and defensive play calling, I'm going to go with the B minus. So after you combine the votes that came in through X as well as in the Facebook group, nobody gave the coaching staff an A.
Well, yeah.
6% gave him a B. 36% gave the coaching a C. 50% went with a D, which in many states, I don't even think they hand out Ds anymore, but they should. And 8% said, an F, an absolute fail. So there you have it. Brutal indeed.
We had some comments in the poll on the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook group. First off, Aaron Peterson said, got to play 4 quarters, not just one. And this is a serious trend for Matt LaFleur. I feel like this game is kind of an exception of that this season. They've been playing 4 quarters of football. They played 1 quarter, and it happened to be the 4th quarter this time. So
that was a good quarter.
Garrett Stritzel said, it's easy to say there was lots of bad decisions after the fact, but it is not helping when it's the same mistakes and slow start every time they lose. That's like a really good point. It's always the slow starts that bite us.
Yeah.
When we come out the gate swinging, I know we drew first blood this week, but when we go up ahead 2 scores or more, it tends to work out better. Who would have thought? So, also, Brett Connor in the UK said, poor play calling on both sides of the ball. It just didn't look like a playoff team tonight. We certainly know we can play better. Didn't look a threat until halfway through the 4th quarter, which at that point was too late. Bears week next week should, in theory, be another W. However, it will be interesting to see how that would seat us for a, quote, easier run to the Super Bowl. Go, Pack, go. P.S. Great officiating tonight, said in a very sarcastic tone.
Just great. And Dawn said, disappointed we didn't take points when we could, especially on the road versus a tough opponent. I also don't like the long passes that weren't working. Stick with the run and short passes. I think I've heard you mention that as well, Scott. Good points, Don. And Dan Dyler, I'm going to go with a D. Matt LaFleur in a conference game versus a team who's already beaten him once at home. We had an opportunity to get points. Insist that you go for it on 4th and 5 instead of going for 3 points. Inexcusable. Apparently, he didn't see what happened last year when his fellow NFC North coach lost the NFC Championship game because of the same dumb choice. I think he's referencing Dan Campbell and the Lions. He continues, also the choice to go 50-50 on run versus pass, I take umbrage with. I think that's the first use of umbrage this season. Thank you, Dan. Jacobs, Brooks, Wilson, they had the opportunity to beat down the opponent's defensive line and stop that horn from blowing. But no, let's take several deep shots. At the end of the day, we're in the playoffs, and our young team will learn and grow from these challenges and failures. They need to put together a game plan that includes a full 60 minutes, not just the last 6 minutes.
Very well said.
There you go. There's a lot of other great conversations around the poll question and other green and gold goodness in the Packers Fan Podcast Facebook group. Remember to join the community, be part of the conversations at packerscommunity.com, and check out all the fun, especially for our live game chat section during the Packers-Bears game. You know, it's Bears week, people. We'll see you there.
And now it's time to hear from the listeners. Packers fans, let your voice be heard and be part of the show. Record a 2 to 3 minute feedback on your phone or computer and then email the recording to feedback@packersfanpodcast.com or by calling the PFP voicemail at +1 920 3PACK-GO. Be sure to call and share your thoughts on the Bears game right after it ends. Deadlines for your calls will be Monday at 6 p.m. Central Time. Wayne, what is our first call?
The first call is from the great state of Texas.
Wayne Scott, I'm from Texas. Oh, man, another heartbreak. I don't know what to say. That offsides on that field goal, the offsides they called us, come on, man. Anyways, I don't know. This pass rush, it's a hit or miss. They do good like against lower tier teams, but when it comes to top tier teams like the Lions or the Vikings, the Eagles, I don't know the pass rush, what happens to it. But I also think that our defensive coordinator should have blitzed more often, you know. But oh well, it is what it is. The silver lining is that we are in the playoffs, and hopefully they can take this game and learn from it, because I'm afraid they might face the Vikings again, and we'll see how it goes. Green and gold, said I'm getting cold. Go Pack, go!
Go Pack, go indeed. Thank you, Art. Great to hear from you as always. Yes, it was a heartbreaking loss, and yeah, we've talked about the offsides call. I've looked at it. And you know me, Wayne. I'm not the one to usually get as upset as you are when it comes to calls, but that one really burned me, especially because we lost by 2 points. Very, very frustrating. I'm with him. I think we should have blitzed more, clearly, to get that more pressure on him. It's very frustrating. He also brought up an interesting point about, we do well against the lesser teams and not so well against the better teams. It's getting hard to argue with that. Would you believe on Facebook today, I saw a Bears fan posting, all the games that the Packers won and those teams' records at the end of the season or currently, and they're all less than 500 or well under 500. So I get it, but the Packers' defense is better than this. I'm not sure if it's the Packers defense isn't as good or the Vikings defense is just that good. Either way, we're going to have to step up if we face them again in the playoffs. That's gotta improve.
Fair enough. And 2 points. It's kind of funny to see a Bears fan touting anything.
Dude, it was all I could do to keep from posting on it. I'm like, really? Trash talk from a Bears fan this season, guys?
Or this decade? Come on, man.
Yeah.
To paraphrase Art. And what if, Scott, what if we knew that we would probably be playing the Lions and the Vikings in the playoffs and maybe even the Eagles again? So we kept our real top tier game plans under wraps until the playoffs.
I mean, I'm going to call BS on that being a real thing, but come on.
Hey, what if?
No, dude, that's not what's happening. Come on.
Okay. Well, we're going to just have to prove everybody wrong. And in 2 weeks, we'll get that chance. So let's see who sent us a voicemail to feedback@PackersFanPodcast.com.
Go, Pack, go. Well, again, another top tier opponent and another loss. We got Philly, twice to Detroit, twice to Minnesota, and here we are. And I think it all started on that first drive when it was looking so promising, when Josh Jacobs fumbled that ball. That really, I think that was the turning point of the game. We were well on our way to establishing a good momentum. Because had he not fumbled, very good chance we would have scored at least a field goal, if not a touchdown. And speaking of field goals, against a divisional opponent who also has a better record than you, I don't care what the analytics say on fourth down, you take the stinking points. I had to censor myself right there because I was about to drop a bomb. But you take the points in that situation. I don't understand why LaFleur, hey, let's go for it on fourth down and 5 yard. We haven't been doing too good. Let's just go for it. That's just dumb. That I don't care what the analytics say. You have to go with the points in that situation. And then the defense, they just couldn't get off the field all game. I know I didn't look at the time of possession difference, but I'm pretty sure that the Vikings possessed the ball at least 10 to 12 minutes more than we did. And that makes sense because we were missing Jair Alexander, Quay Walker, Andre Dillard, Evan Williams, and then we lost Zane Anderson and Brenton Cox to a concussion during the game. So that just changed the whole outlook or the whole scheme that Hafley had to call for the rest of the game. Those are 5 big playmakers. Well, not so much Zane Anderson and Brenton Cox because they are backups to the backup, but still, it's a big change in the way that they approach the game and the way that they practice all week. One thing that really stood out to me is the lack of consistency with play calling, catching with the wide receivers. We have in the league, we have the most 20-yard plays attempted and the most 20-yard plus plays completed in the league, but we also lead the league in drops. And I think, I've been seeing it going around in on the blogosphere and in the podcasts that I listen to. We've been talking about, or we've been hearing a lot. Well, who's your number one wide receiver? Well, we don't have one. Well, in the beginning of the season, everybody was saying, oh, you don't need one because we have so many quality wide receivers at the position. But when you don't have consistency and you don't have a person that you can go to time and time again, think about it. Everybody that listens to this, we have a job or we have had a job at some point. And the more you do something, the more proficient you become at it. And if you're only getting 2, maybe 3 passes in a game time situation, instead of, Devontae Adams who gets the ball 8 to 10 times, in a game time situation, that creates a consistent basis and a consistent thing that the quarterback can always go to. So maybe we do need a number 1 wide receiver, somebody that Jordan Love can consistently go to, because when he's dropping back and he's looking around, he's going to go to different wide receivers, but because they're not used to it, because Jordan Love is not used to it, because they don't do it consistently more than 2 or 3 times a game, maybe there's something to that. I do want to say real quick, since I didn't get a chance to call in last week, it was so awesome to meet up with Caleb, CCR, or at least Caleb and Kathy, get our Go Pack Goes in, and to meet up with Megan and her Minnesota Vikings boyfriend. It was still awesome to see him. Great time hanging out. Wish we could have done it a little bit longer. And now we turn our attention to the Chicago Bears. I don't really know what to think about in this game, because we could sit our starters or sit a lot of them. It could really go either way, but we still have a lot to play for. You don't want to go into the postseason. We're going into the postseason regardless what happens, whether we're the 6th seed or the 7th seed, we're going. But you don't want to go in on a loss. You want a little bit of momentum. You want to stack your victories. What I'm hoping to see is Jair Alexander come back, get his legs underneath him, get a few plays, and Christian Watson come in. The guys that have been out due to injury, I want to see them at least get a few plays in, and then absolutely take it to the Bears. And you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb. The wager of fun, that's out of control. Brett Connor is clearly going to be winning this thing. So let's do this thing. I'm going to predict a 50-burger, 50-17. Green Bay Packers. Go, 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 go. Go, Pack, go.
Stunned I am. Stunned. Dan Dyler, Pack Sparrow, thank you so much for sending that in. So many great points in there. A 50-burger. Well, since we could go deep into the playoffs and maybe even the Super Bowl, Brett Connor might not have it wrapped up just yet, but he does have a commanding league. But if the Packers score 50 on the Bears, Scott, whoa.
That's not going to happen, man. I love you, but there's no way that's going to happen because this game it matters, and we'll get to that later on. But I feel like they're gonna work harder for this one because it's the Bears than they are for seeding. But we'll get to that in my keys to a victory. Spoiler alert.
Oh, I love spoiler alerts. This is good stuff. And the big question is, will we really play all of our starters? And if we do, will we play them for more than half the game? I can't believe we're still getting people injured. And it's really frustrating. I don't even know at this point if we're going to see Jair in the playoffs. It's frustrating as heck.
I haven't heard any updates. Is he still not doing well?
Every week when they ask Coach about it, LaFleur's like, I don't know. We'll see him. Maybe. I don't know. It's like, I think he's been at some practices in practice. So maybe we know he only has like 2 or 3 games in him for the season. And we're going to make those 2 or 3 games be when it really counts. I don't know what's going on, but Dan, so many great points. I do love the conversation starter about maybe we do need a legit number 1 wide receiver, even if it might make Coach LaFleur vomit when he thinks about having a number 1 receiver, for consistency's sake.
I'm actually in disagreement with Dan on this, and I don't think you need a number 1 receiver. That was the downfall with Aaron Rodgers back in the day, was he was always throwing to Adams. And there's so many targets here. I feel like I feel like our tight end is getting more catches. Kraft is getting more catches than some of the receivers. To me, that is a good thing that we are spreading the ball up because the defense is not going to know where you're going to be throwing it to. If we have that number 1, like like the Vikings. Their number one is Jefferson. How many catches did Jefferson get in that game? I think he caught his second in the fourth quarter. Because he was covered, because the defense knew that they had to double cover him, so that left Naylor and others open, and Addison. I like the idea of having multiple, not necessarily top shelf wide receivers, but top tier wide receivers, and lots of them. We've got lots of good receivers there, and they're young. You get all of those young guys consistent, they will be number one receivers, but they'll have to share that, that title between all of them. So that's my take.
It's definitely something to think about, because he does make good points, but at the same time, your point about them just being young could be the reason behind it all. And it could all tie into what Dan brought up earlier with we are leading the league in drops. It could just be being young. Dang it, they don't grow up fast enough. I always think they grow up too fast, but then when they join the NFL, they don't grow up fast enough. Time, it's going to get us. It's going to get us. Anyway, thank you so much for that, Dan. He did call back with a quick Packers Fan Podcast Fantasy Football League Championship Weekend update. I almost can't listen. Oh, well.
Also, I want to give a shout out to the executioner, Hank Campbell, who won the PFP Fantasy Football Championship over Wicks and Sticks, a.k.a. Troy Heinrichs, and I get the consolation prize of beating your next wager of fun and fantasy football champ. I don't know who that guy is. Anyways, great fantasy football season, and look forward to next year. Go, 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 Pack, go.
Thanks so much, Dan, and thanks for putting together that league. It's always a lot of fun. I was in 4 leagues this season, and I definitely don't want to do that again. I just want to go down to 2. I've got one that actually is a money league, and then the PFP one is just for fun. But doing 4 is just too much. It's not like my father-in-law that did 32, but it was a lot of fun. I was nowhere near competitive, and I really thought I was going to be. I drafted really well and thought I was going to have a monster season, but that's what I get for drafting, Christian McCaffrey. Oh man, I'm not going to make that mistake again. But it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun, and thanks again, Dan, for being the commissioner. Because the first season we had this, I tried to be the commissioner. I don't even understand fantasy football, so that was no good. But I made it to the backup finalists. I ended up in 4th place, I guess, but I was having a really good year, and then just like teams in the NFL, injuries started to mount up. You couldn't get backups, so forth. But anyway, congratulations, Hassan Campbell, for being the champion of the PFP FFL, and we'll reach out to you.
Moving on to emails, we got a couple here, and no, I'm not going to read Jared's email in his voice because I'm not nearly as talented as he is. But Jared in Colorado says, offense needed to show up for all 4 quarters, not just halfway into the 4th quarter. Officiating was some of the worst I've seen all season long. It 100% was a contributing factor to the loss this week, but the Packers should have played a full 4 quarters of football to negate what had probably become an unfortunate reality of the modern-day NFL with crap referees. When playing from behind, Matt LaFleur needs to be better with calling plays that focus on fundamental football. Yes! And not back-to-back hero ball types of play calls. All in all, I think the Packers will be a team that no one wants to face in the playoffs. But if they play like they did tonight, they aren't going to make it far. Here's to getting things right against the Bears and coming in roaring into the playoffs. Go, Pack, go. Jared in Colorado. Thank you very much, Jared. Appreciate it.
We do appreciate it, even if Scott doesn't read it in the patented Jared style. But well done, Scott. Very well done. And I thought that was a good point about the fact that the hero ball. Remember during Aaron Rodgers last year or 2 with the Packers, and that kept happening on like 4th and 3, and we'd throw it 30 yards. And we thought maybe that's just an Aaron Rodgers thing.
No, it's a Packers thing.
Oh, the pain. Also got an email from James from Montana. Frustrating loss. Starting slow, and that early turnover killed us. I wonder if the young age of this team is the reason we start slow in a lot of these big rivalry games. Once they get through the nerves, they start to play a bit better. Consistently we have great second halves. Hard not to be upset with the bogus offsides call that gave them another field goal attempt in a game where we only lost by 2. And I always see people saying the refs have it in for their team, but it's probably more like an Anlon's razor. Never attribute to malice that which is adequately explained by incompetence. Yeah, there was some incompetence on display. I see your point. Well said. James continues, the refs aren't tipping the scales in favor or against any one team in particular. They're just incompetent. These games really don't matter all that much. Sure, the seeding changes a tiny bit, but we're going to have to win on the road to win the Super Bowl, something we absolutely can do. We need to get healthy and have done. And in New Orleans, even in the past. So that all happened. We need to get healthy going into the playoffs. The Vikings exploited some holes that we had. And you've got to think a few players are extremely close to returning. The playoffs is where it matters most. Bring on the Bears, who I'm sure will bring their all. No more losses until next season, starting now. Let's freaking go. James from Montana.
Thank you so much, James.
Yes.
Great to hear from you again, man.
Exactly. So let's preview that game. It is Bears week. Your 11-5 Green Bay Packers closing out the regular season and starting the new year by hosting the 4-12 Chicago Bears Sunday, January 5th at 12 noon Central Time on Fox here in the States. The Green Bay Packers, of course, lead this series all time against the Bears with 108 wins, 95 losses, and 6 ties. They have played 209 games since their first meeting on November 27th, 1921. We lost that first matchup against the Staleys 20-0. But what's cool is that if we have any kindergartners or first graders listening to the podcast, they've never had to hear us recap a loss to the Bears. So let's not start that now. That new generation deserves to never hear that happen. The most recent Green Bay loss to the Bears was December 16th, 2018. And as it was, we were already on a 5-game win streak against Chicago when we faltered that 1 week. Instead of just being an 11-game win streak, we'd have a 17-game streak of victories over the Bears if we hadn't lost that 1 week.
Wow.
Caleb Williams has been sacked, I believe, 66 times so far this season.
67.
Oh, that makes it even better. He's been sacked 67 times this season, so we just need to sack him 9 or 10 times on Sunday, and he will have the all-time record. I think we should help him out. What do you think?
10 sacks in a game? Oh, my goodness. That'd be amazing. I would love that, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Hey, anything can happen because Sunday's weather at Lambeau Field is forecast to be very cold. Cloudy with a high of 22 degrees Fahrenheit, which is minus 5.5 degrees Celsius. And yeah, I know the Bears also play outside in the cold, but it's going to be a factor for both teams. It's going to be chilly.
It's going to be a cold game, and not going to say, I would like to be there. It's at Green Bay, but I would rather be at one that matters a little bit more. But unfortunately, they're not going to be at home for the rest of the season. So,
but if we end up with the number 6 seed, a lot of crazy things could happen in default. But on the plus side, if we do end up sacking Caleb Williams 10 times and setting the record or helping him set the record, you'll wish you were at the game.
It's true. That's true. All right, it is time for my keys to a Packers victory over the Bears. I got 3 pretty simple ones. Number 1 is going to be prioritize safety over seeding. Dan alluded to this a little bit on his call, but the Packers currently hold the number 7 seed in the NFC. The only way that they can take the number 6 spot is if they beat the Bears and the Commanders lose to the Cowboys. As nice as it would be to not play the top team in the first round of the playoffs, having healthy players is much more important. I get it. It's a hardcore rivalry matchup, and we never want to lose to the Bears. But my advice is to not even play the starters this game. I know that won't happen. It's just simply not going to happen, but that's why I'm not in charge. But that's what I think they should do. I think they should just let Malik Willis do his thing and rest everybody else and get them geared up for the first week of the playoffs, because there's not going to be a gap there. It's not like there's going to be a bye week or whatever. They don't get it. They're just going to go right into that first wild card football. Strategy number 2, attack Caleb Williams. Wayne, you already mentioned this, but the Chicago offensive line is abysmal this year. Caleb Williams has been sacked 67 times this season alone, so getting after him is going to be the easy way to keep the Bears from scoring this game. Plant his butt on the turf over and over and over again and keep the ball on the right side for the majority of the game. That's going to be huge. And strategy number 3, I feel like I say this so many weeks, but 10 yards at a time, guys. Last week against the Vikings, the Packers had very few plays over 20 yards. Even though they barely lost the game, they succeeded when they went after the first down marker instead of trying for explosive plays. That should be the focus this week again, which also will help with keeping injuries to a minimum. It's time to get back to fundamental football again, especially as they head into the playoffs. And there you have it.
Those could be your best keys to victory of the season, Scott.
I don't want to work. I just want to bang on my drum all day.
Oh, yeah. Oh, bring on the Todd Rundgren. Thank you, Mrs. Clark. That was beautiful.
Yes, that was my wife. You're welcome, everybody.
She needs to sing that every single week, at least through this playoff run. Well done, Stephanie.
Yes,
Thank
I do.
You. Before we move on, a couple of quick things about your excellent keys to victory. Can you imagine being sacked 67 times in a year?
It's just got to be so disheartening.
And painful, so for some of them at least. That's fantastic. And that's a good point about prioritizing safety, over the seeding, because there's a good chance the Cowboys aren't going to beat the Commanders anyway. So.
That's not going to happen. No.
Anything could happen. Did you see the depleted 49ers last night?
I actually didn't see. What was the result?
Well, there was apparently no defense on either side of the ball. The final score was something like 42-36 or something. It was like, I think there was a stat at the end of the game, something like this is the first game since 1937 where there were no punts and there were 10 or more touchdowns.
Wow.
No defense. So anyways, let's go ahead and move on. What's happening in the season wager of fun, which apparently wasn't fun for anybody this week?
No, nobody took it this week. I predicted 27-21. You predicted 28-25 in favor of the Packers, but sadly the Packers lost 25-27. So there was no winners. Nobody picked the Vikings to win this game, which is kind of surprising because I think the Vikings were favored, but I think we were so high on our 5-win streak that we were very hopeful. So as it stands right now, Wayne, you are still in the lead by 1. It's 5-4. And the listeners, Brett Connor still with a commanding lead, 5 wins. Dan Deiler, Garrett Stritzel, Dan Deiler and Garrett Stritzel are tied for second place with 2 wins apiece, and David Newman, Jay Walters, David Hawkins, and Megan each have 1 win apiece. Not a lot of football left, but anything could happen on any given Sunday.
Right, but depending on how it all plays out, David, Jay, and David and Megan could be eliminated from contention by the end of this game, but we'll see.
They could.
Anything's possible. Keep after it, people.
As for this week, I actually changed my prediction after thinking about it a little bit more.
What?
I did. I still think the Packers are going to win, but I don't think that it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think that the Packers are going to take an early lead, and then they're going to rest. So I'm going to say Packers 24, Chicago 13. What say you?
Interesting indeed. I think it's going to be a pretty basic game as far as scores. Nothing wild, nothing outlandish. Just a good old 4 touchdowns to 2 touchdowns. It's going to be 28-14 in favor of the Packers.
All right. As for the listeners, Garrett Stritzel says Green Bay 33, Chicago 10. Brett Connor, Green Bay 24, Chicago 14. Jay Walters, Green Bay 31, Chicago 17. And Dan Deiler, as you heard before, a 50 burger to 17 from Chicago. We'll have to see how that plays out. You know what, Dan? If that happens, I will buy you a burger. How about that?
With grilled onions, right? You got to have the grilled onions. That's the way to go. So, as we all know, the Lions are 14-12. The Vikings are 14-12. So it all comes down to their one game. I looked it up. It is in Detroit, so that's a huge plus.
I am really looking forward to watching that game, man. That's going to be an awesome game. That's a Sunday night game?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And the Packers are 11-5. We're in third place. This would give us first place in almost any other division in the NFL. And the Bears are 4-12, which that doesn't put you anywhere in any division. And nothing in particular stood out from games this past weekend. And they were, on Wednesday, they were on Thursday, there was some on Saturday and Sunday. I don't even know what day it is today, Scott. But I just love seeing the puzzle pieces of the playoff picture falling into place. And, oh, no, that team's been eliminated, and this puts them here and this team. So it's just fun to see it all come together. And
yeah, the number of times I've gone to NFL.com and clicked on playoff picture.
Me
just
too.
to kind of look. Like I keep going to that to see what's, even on the AFC, I'm just interested to see what's going to happen. So, but yeah, one more week of regular season, man. I can't believe the season is almost coming to a close here. It's kind of crazy. Moving on, want to remind you guys one more time about my other podcast, The Gaming Outsider. We normally have a new episode every Thursday, but we decided to take a couple weeks off for the holidays. Although I do want to mention, I recently completed and reviewed a game on my website. It's called Silent Hill 2. You can find that on thegamingoutsider.com for my review. Shockingly good game. I did not think I was going to like it as much as I did. Might be the creepiest thing I've played in years. I was jumping out of my skin on more than one occasion. But if you would, do me a favor. If you have a gamer friend or family member, tell them about The Gaming Outsider. We would love for them to check it out. It is absolutely free. You can hear it the same place you listen to this fine show or on our website, thegamingoutsider.com.
As 2025 and the playoff season gets underway, we are so appreciative of your continued Patreon support of the old PFP. Jay Walters, go Pack Go, and thank you for your Bart Star patronage. You rock, sir. And Mr. Dan Dialer, thanks and go Pack Go to you for supporting us at the Jordan Love 10 level. Thank you very much. Go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go, and thank yous for all of our Brett Favre level patrons, Megan, Scott Boers, Miguel Ramirez from the Opposites Track podcast. And a happy new year full of gratefulness and Go Pack goes to our Lambo level patrons, Hank Davis from the TPE Network, Joe Christensen, and Brett Connor. If you're also interested in joining us, all the details are at PackersFanPodcast.com/giveback. As always, the Unofficial Packers Fan Podcast is not affiliated with the NFL or the Green Bay Packers, but do us a favor, please tell a friend about a show. You are our best source of marketing, and we do appreciate it.
And we invite you to follow us on X, formerly known as Twitter. I'm at Wayne Henderson. Scott is at GoCastScott. Also, the show's at Packers Fan Pod, and the Gaming Outsider is at The GoCast. And here's our PFP community members, Dan Dialer, Megan, Andre in LA, and Joe Christensen to help the Packers beat the Bears, as is tradition.
Go, Pack, go!
Go Pack, go!
Go Pack, go!
Go, 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 Pack, go!